You stand upon a parched and windswept plateau where the horizon shimmers with a merciless heat. The sun is a blinding eye, watching every movement you make on the cracked earth. Above, there is only the vast sky and the relentless glare of day. But now, imagine a sudden transition. Feel the air turn heavy and cool as you begin a slow descent. You are leaving the volatile surface behind and entering a kingdom sculpted from the very bones of the planet. This is a story of human endurance and the remarkable desire for sanctuary in the deep. Here, entire civilizations have flourished in the silent, steady embrace of stone. Picture the soft glow of distant lamps and the profound hush that only the earth can provide. We are about to explore the incredible towns built completely underground. Prepare to discover a hidden world of ancient ingenuity. The sun is a relentless hammer, striking the parched ground with a brilliance that blinds and a heat that sears. You stand on a shimmering, heat-hazed plain where the very air seems to vibrate with intensity. Above ground, life is a struggle for shade, a constant negotiation with the elements. But look down. Imagine a staircase carved into that same baking earth, leading away from the glare and into the cool, amber dimness of the bedrock. With every step you descend, the world changes. The oppressive weight of the atmosphere lifts, replaced by the steady, unmoving embrace of the earth itself. You are entering a realm where history took a different turn, where humanity did not just survive, but where we reimagined the very definition of home. This is the story of communities that chose the deep over the heights, the quiet over the clamor, and the unchanging over the erratic. Prepare to explore a labyrinth of comfort and ingenuity. The comfort you are about to encounter did not simply appear. It is the culmination of centuries, even millennia, of human adaptation, a response to challenges so profound that only a retreat into the earth offered a solution. Imagine the ancient world, fraught with both natural extremes and human conflict. Above ground, the sun could scorch the land into a brittle desert, or winter winds could bite with an unforgiving cold. Water was often scarce, shelter was fleeting, and safety was a luxury denied by raiding parties or powerful empires. It was in these crucible moments that humanity first turned its gaze not to the sky, but beneath its feet, seeking sanctuary within the very foundation of the world. Feel now the steady, unchanging temperature that immediately greets you as you descend. Unlike the wild fluctuations of the surface, here, the earth acts as a magnificent insulator, a natural thermostat maintaining a constant, comfortable warmth regardless of the season's rage above. Picture summer heat waves that buckle roads and shimmer mirages into existence. Underground, that relentless sun becomes a distant memory, replaced by a cool, clean air that breathes through tunnels and chambers. Conversely, when winter howls, coating the world in ice and snow, your subterranean dwelling remains a haven of temperate quiet. This consistent thermal stability is not merely a convenience. For many early communities, it was the very essence of survival, protecting them from exposure, crop failure, and the brutal whims of an uncontrolled climate. Listen closely. The world above buzzes with a cacophony of sound. Wind whips through trees, animals call, and the distant murmur of human activity drifts on the breeze. Here, however, a profound quiet embraces you. The thick layers of earth absorb and muffle, creating a stillness that is almost palpable, a profound hush that encourages introspection and calm. It is a quiet unlike any other, not an empty silence, but one pregnant with the gentle hum of the earth itself, a soft resonance that speaks of timeless stability. This deep tranquility was not just a side effect. It provided refuge from the noise of conflict, the roar of storms, and the constant anxieties of life exposed to the elements. For those seeking peace, this subterranean quiet offered an unparalleled sanctuary. Of course, this profound quiet comes with an absence. Natural light, the lifeblood of the surface world, does not penetrate these depths in the traditional way. Instead, you are enveloped in a soft, curated glow. For ancient dwellers, this meant flickering oil lamps, the dancing shadows of firelight, or ingenious light shafts engineered to capture and funnel precious sunbeams deep below. Today, it might be the steady, warm glow of electric lights, carefully placed to illuminate the unique architecture and daily life of these communities. This controlled illumination creates an intimate, almost theatrical atmosphere, where every corner, every carving, and every human face is highlighted with deliberate care. It fosters a different rhythm of life, one less tied to the sun's harsh command and more attuned to the internal clock of the community. These subterranean spaces are not merely holes in the ground. They are intricate, living archives, the hidden veins of human history pulsing with stories of resilience and adaptation. For thousands of years, across continents and cultures, people have instinctively understood the earth as both provider and protector. From prehistoric cave dwellings offering rudimentary shelter to the vast, multi-level cities carved meticulously into soft rock, the impulse to burrow has been a recurring theme in the grand narrative of our species. You are tracing a lineage that predates written history, following the paths of ancestors who saw not an empty void beneath them, but an unyielding, protective embrace. Think of it not as a single type of dwelling, but as a spectrum of human ingenuity. Some underground towns began as simple extensions of mining operations. Miners, spending their days extracting precious minerals or essential resources, found it more practical, safer, and even more comfortable to simply expand their tunnels into homes, shops, and places of worship. The very act of carving out a living became the act of carving out a life. Others were born from a dire need for defense. Entire populations disappeared beneath the earth during times of war, creating elaborate networks of tunnels and chambers designed to confuse invaders and provide a safe retreat until the danger passed. Still others were formed out of a desire for spiritual isolation, where monastic communities found profound peace and connection in the quiet solitude of the underground. What kind of community flourishes in such an environment? You might imagine a sense of profound interdependence. In a world carved from rock, every resource, every shared space, and every breath of fresh air is a testament to collective effort. Neighbors are not just next door. They are often literally connected by a shared wall of earth, or by tunnels that lead directly from one home to another. This close proximity, born of necessity, often fosters a unique solidarity, a strong communal bond where reliance on one another is not just a virtue, but a fundamental aspect of daily existence. Decisions about ventilation, waste, food storage, and defense become shared responsibilities, weaving the fabric of the community tightly together. You would find yourself part of a collective endeavor, each person contributing to the survival and flourishing of the whole. The labyrinth of comfort is not just about the physical structures, but also the intricate social systems developed to thrive in them. Ingenuity extends beyond the mere act of excavation. It encompasses the remarkable systems for airflow, for collecting and filtering water in a world where rainfall does not directly reach you, for managing waste, and for cultivating food in artificial light. Imagine the careful planning required to ensure structural integrity, to prevent collapses, and to manage drainage in an environment where gravity naturally pulls water downwards into your living spaces. These are not trivial challenges. They demanded generations of accumulated knowledge, trial and error, and a deep understanding of geology and engineering long before those terms even existed. As you walk through these subterranean streets, you are not just observing history. You are experiencing it from the inside out. You feel the cool rock against your hand. You breathe the air conditioned by the earth. You hear the muffled echoes of life lived beneath the surface. This is a history lesson unlike any other, one that engages all your senses, drawing you into the intimate reality of people who chose to live differently, who reimagined what home could truly be. It challenges your preconceived notions of what a town should look like, where it should be, and how it should function. These hidden veins of history run deep, connecting us to a forgotten past and revealing the incredible spectrum of human adaptability. They whisper stories of resilience, innovation, and an unwavering spirit in the face of adversity. Each tunnel, each chamber, and each carved dwelling is a chapter in a continuous narrative, waiting for you to explore its depths. We are only just beginning to uncover the secrets held within these ancient, earthbound communities. Our journey will take us further, into specific examples where these principles of comfort and ingenuity were perfected, creating entire worlds beneath the surface. Imagine the feeling of leaving the wind and the dust behind. As you step deeper, the weight of the world above seems to vanish. The rock walls are not barriers, but guardians. They have stood for millions of years, and they offer that same permanence to the people within them. There is a specific scent to these places, a clean, mineral aroma that speaks of stability. There is a specific touch, the slightly textured, cool surface of sandstone or tuff that remains the same temperature day after day. In these depths, the passage of time is marked not by the movement of the sun, but by the steady heartbeat of the community and the slow, rhythmic breath of the earth. This invitation is not just to see a different type of architecture. It is an invitation to understand a different way of being. To live underground is to accept the embrace of the planet, to find wealth in the shadows, and to build a legacy that is protected from the ravages of time. It is a world where the architect and the geologist are one and the same, and where the line between the natural world and the human world becomes beautifully blurred. As we move forward, keep your senses sharp. The stories of these towns are etched into the very stone, waiting to be read by those who are willing to step out of the light and into the deep. Step away from the shimmering plains we first explored and travel across the vast, rolling landscape of central Anatolia. Here, in modern-day Turkey, the earth tells a story through shapes that seem to defy the laws of nature. Picture a horizon dotted with tall, slender cones of rock, often called fairy chimneys, rising like frozen waves from the valley floors. The sun here is a heavy presence, baking the pale soil until it cracks and shimmers. On the surface, the wind whispers through sparse grasses and around the edges of ancient, weathered stone. But as you have learned, the most profound secrets of this land do not reach for the clouds. They dive deep into the very foundations of the world. You are standing above a masterpiece of human survival, a subterranean realm carved not by force, but by a quiet, persistent ingenuity. This is the soft stone labyrinth of Cappadocia, a place where history was sculpted by hand in the dark. To understand this world, you must first understand the stone itself. Millions of years ago, great volcanic eruptions blanketed this region in thick layers of ash. Over eons, this ash compressed into a unique substance known as tuff. It is a geologist's wonder, a rock that is remarkably soft, almost like dried clay, yet surprisingly durable when exposed to the air. The ancient inhabitants of this land looked at these soft hills and saw something more than a barren obstacle. They saw a sanctuary. Because the tuff was so easily worked, a single person with a simple iron chisel could carve out a room in a matter of weeks. They discovered that the earth here was a willing partner, a soft canvas that could be hollowed out to create a life sheltered from the chaos above. As you approach a small, inconspicuous opening in the side of a hill, prepare to leave the glare of the Anatolian sun behind. Step through the threshold and feel the immediate, dramatic shift. The dry, searing heat of the surface vanishes, replaced by a cool, damp stillness that seems to press gently against your skin. This is the Earth's natural thermostat at work. Whether it is a blistering summer afternoon or a freezing winter night on the plateau, the temperature within these stone walls remains a constant, comfortable 55 degrees Fahrenheit. Your breathing slows. Your eyes, once squinting against the brilliance of the day, begin to adjust to a world of soft shadows and muted earth tones. You are entering Durinkui, the deepest and perhaps most complex of the dozens of underground cities hidden beneath this landscape. As you descend the first set of narrow, hand-carved stairs, you realize that this is not a mere cave. It is an urban marvel. You are walking through a city that once housed as many as 20,000 people. Imagine the sheer scale of such an endeavor. This labyrinth descends at least 18 levels deep, plunging nearly 300 feet into the bedrock. Every chamber, every corridor, and every vertical shaft was planned with a precision that seems impossible for a people working centuries ago. Follow the curve of the smooth, pale walls. You pass into a large, vaulted chamber that served as a communal stable. Even here, deep underground, the needs of the surface were not forgotten. You can see the carved mangers where livestock were tethered, their warmth adding to the comfort of the levels above. Further in, the passages widen into great halls. Picture these spaces filled with the soft, flickering light of linseed oil lamps. The walls are not cold or imposing, they possess a soft, organic texture, bearing the rhythmic marks of the chisels that birthed them. You can almost hear the echoes of a bustling community, the murmur of voices, and the quiet clatter of daily life resonating through the stone. The ingenuity of Cappadocia lies in its mastery of the invisible. Look up, and you will see the mouth of a ventilation shaft, a vertical artery that stretches hundreds of feet upward to the surface. These shafts are the lungs of the city. There are thousands of them scattered throughout the region, some disguised as natural rock formations or hidden within the floors of surface dwellings. They were designed so perfectly that even on the lowest levels, the air remains fresh and circulating, carrying away the smoke of cooking fires and the breath of thousands. This was not a place of stagnant darkness, it was a breathing, living environment where the air was as carefully managed as the stone walls themselves. But why go so deep? Why build a world where the sun never reaches? The answer lies in the crucible of history. Cappadocia sat at the crossroads of empires, a land frequently swept by the tides of war and the march of marauding armies. For the early Christians and the civilizations that preceded them, the surface was a place of extreme vulnerability. When the horizon filled with the dust of approaching invaders, the signal would be given, and entire villages would simply disappear. They did not flee across the plains, they retreated into the soft embrace of the tough. As you move deeper into the labyrinth, you encounter the city's primary defense. A massive, circular stone door, looking like a giant millstone, sits in a recessed niche beside a narrow corridor. These doors, weighing hundreds of pounds, were designed to be rolled into place from the inside, sealing off entire levels. Once closed, they were impenetrable from the outside, with no way for an invader to gain leverage or force an entry. A small hole in the center of the stone allowed the defenders to peer out or use spears to keep attackers at bay. Within these sealed corridors, the community was safe. They had transformed the very earth into an unyielding shield. Life in the soft stone labyrinth was a testament to human interdependence. You walk past communal kitchens where great circular ovens were carved into the floor, shared by dozens of families. You find wine presses and oil vats, their stone surfaces stained by the harvests of centuries. There are even deep wells, reaching down to subterranean water tables, ensuring that the inhabitants would never go thirsty, even during a prolonged siege. Every resource was shared, every space was multifunctional, and every breath was a collective effort. This was a society bound together by the rock itself, a community that understood that their survival depended on the strength of their shared walls. Amidst the practical spaces of survival, you stumble upon something that touches the spirit. Carved into the deepest levels are magnificent churches and monasteries. These are not simple shrines, but elaborate architectural feats with cruciform layouts, vaulted ceilings, and columns left standing to support the weight of the levels above. In the dim light, you can still see the remains of frescoes painted directly onto the stone, their colors muted by time but their devotion still palpable. For those living in the shadows, these underground cathedrals were beacons of hope, places where they could find a different kind of light in the profound silence of the earth. The quiet here is absolute. It is a silence that feels thick, as if the rock itself is absorbing every stray thought. It is a hush that encourages a different rhythm of life, one that is not dictated by the rising of the sun but by the internal needs of the community. In the depths of the labyrinth, the anxieties of the world above feel like a distant memory. The wind cannot reach you. The rain cannot find you. The heat cannot touch you. You are held in a soft, steady cradle of stone, a sanctuary that has stood the test of millennia. As you begin your ascent back toward the surface, the air begins to warm, and the light grows stronger. When you finally step back out onto the sun-baked plain of Anatolia, the transition is jarring. The world feels too big, too loud, and too exposed. You look back at the small hole in the rock, now nearly invisible against the landscape, and you realize that you have just walked through a ghost of human resilience. The soft stone labyrinth of Cappadocia was more than a hiding place. It was a masterpiece of comfort and ingenuity, a world built entirely on the belief that even in the face of overwhelming danger, humanity could carve out a life of dignity and peace beneath the feet of its enemies. The secrets of the tough remain, whispering to those who are willing to listen to the silent story of the stone. Imagine a world where the horizon is not a line of beauty, but a source of dread. Picture a time when the dust rising in the distance does not signal the arrival of a friendly caravan, but the approach of an army. For countless generations, the surface of our planet has been a stage for the grand and often violent dramas of history. Empires have risen and crumbled, boundaries have been drawn in blood, and the relative peace of a village could be shattered in an afternoon by the glint of iron and the thunder of hooves. It was in these moments of profound vulnerability that humanity turned its back on the open sky. You are about to step into a different kind of subterranean realm, one born not from a desire for mineral wealth or a need for climate control, but from the raw, fundamental instinct for survival. This is the story of the underground as a fortress, a hidden sanctuary where the very weight of the earth became a shield against the storms of human conflict. You stand at the edge of a nondescript hole in the ground, perhaps hidden beneath the floorboards of a simple house or tucked away in the shadows of a rocky outcrop. As you descend, the chaotic noise of the world above begins to peel away. The shouting, the clatter of steel, and the frantic heartbeat of a population under threat are replaced by an immediate and heavy silence. This is the silence of concealment. It is a quiet that is both protective and tense, a hush where every indrawn breath feels like a secret kept from the sky. You are entering a space where the earth does not just provide a roof, but a cloak of invisibility. Here, history was not written in the sunlight, but whispered in the dark, preserved within the unyielding bedrock that refused to betray those who sought its embrace. Consider the vast, multi-leveled marvel of Derinkuy in central Anatolia. As you navigate its narrow, winding passages, you are moving through a city designed for a singular, desperate purpose: to disappear. Picture the scene as an invading force sweeps across the Anatolian plains. Above ground, the villages are empty, the fields abandoned. But beneath the feet of the unsuspecting soldiers, thousands of people are living, breathing, and waiting. You reach a point in the tunnel where a massive, circular stone disc sits in a deep groove. This is a millstone door, weighing hundreds of pounds, designed to be rolled into place from the inside. Feel the cool, rough surface of the stone. In your mind, hear the low, grinding rumble as it slides shut, sealing the community away from the world. Once that stone is in place, the passage becomes indistinguishable from the surrounding rock. The earth has closed its eyes, and the people within have vanished. This was not a temporary hiding spot, but a fully realized society in waiting. As you explore deeper, you find stables for livestock, communal kitchens with ventilation shafts that disguise the smell of cooking smoke, and even small chapels where prayers were offered in the soft glow of oil lamps. The ingenuity of these defensive labyrinths is staggering. Think of the psychological toll and the incredible resilience required to live in such a state of suspended animation. You are surrounded by a community that has chosen the darkness of the earth over the dangers of the light. The silence here is a weapon, a tactical advantage that allowed entire civilizations to endure while the storms of history raged over their heads. You can almost feel the collective breath held in the dark, a silent defiance against those who sought to conquer what they could not see. Now, move your focus to the rolling hills of northern France, to the ancient chalk quarries of Nayers. Here, beneath the quiet farmland, lies a vast network of tunnels known as muches, a word derived from the Old French term for to hide. For centuries, these subterranean galleries provided refuge for thousands of villagers during the countless wars that scarred the European landscape. Imagine the transition from the bright, green fields above to the white, ghostly corridors of the chalk mines. As you walk through these galleries, you see the remnants of daily life etched into the very walls. There are rooms for bakeries, areas for livestock, and thousands of individual chambers that served as temporary homes. The chalk is soft, easily carved, yet it provided a sturdy sanctuary against the marauding bands of soldiers who roamed the surface. Listen to the echoes of the past in Nayers. You might see graffiti left by soldiers from the First World War, men who sought a moment of respite in the same tunnels that had sheltered medieval peasants hundreds of years earlier. The earth here is a cross-generational sanctuary, a place where different eras of human suffering and survival intersect. You feel the cool, damp air and notice how the white walls seem to hold the shadows of those who huddled here in fear. The silence in these chalk tunnels is different from the tactical quiet of Anatolia. It is a silence of shared endurance, a communal wait for the dawn of peace. It is a reminder that the impulse to burrow, to seek the safety of the deep, is a universal human response to the recurring cycles of conflict. The story of the underground sanctuary is also a story of faith. Consider the catacombs of Rome, where early Christians sought refuge and a place for sacred burials. You descend into the narrow, dark galleries, the air thick with the scent of damp stone and the weight of centuries. Here, the silence is not just about concealment, but about reverence. The walls are lined with niches, the final resting places of those who held onto their beliefs in the face of persecution. As you walk through these hallowed tunnels, you realize that the earth provided a space where a marginalized community could maintain its identity and its rituals, far from the prying eyes of an empire that sought to erase them. The underground was a womb for a new faith, a place where it could grow in secret, protected by the very soil that would eventually claim its followers. Feel the profound intimacy of these sacred spaces. The flickering light of a candle reveals simple carvings, symbols of hope and peace etched into the tufa rock. In this subterranean quiet, the distractions of the Roman world, the spectacles of the Colosseum and the clamor of the Forum, are utterly forgotten. There is a sense of focused devotion, a spiritual resonance that is amplified by the enclosed space. The earth here is not just a shield, it is a temple. It offered a sanctuary where the silence was not an absence of sound, but a vessel for prayer. You are witnessing the power of the underground to preserve not just lives, but ideas and spirits, keeping them safe until they were strong enough to emerge into the light. Think of the psychological impact of this subterranean life. To live as a refugee within the earth is to experience a unique form of sensory deprivation. You lose the sight of the stars, the feeling of the wind on your face, and the natural rhythm of day and night. But in exchange, you gain a sense of absolute security. The earth is the ultimate constant. It does not waver, it does not betray, and it does not judge. For those hiding from history's storms, the underground was a place where the chaos of the world was replaced by a predictable, albeit dim, stability. You can imagine the profound relief of stepping into the cool dark, knowing that the thick layers of rock above you are an impassable barrier for those who wish you harm. It is a trade of the expansive beauty of the surface for the intimate safety of the deep. This history of concealment is etched into the very stones of these underground towns. Every tool mark, every soot stain from an old lamp, and every worn step in a narrow staircase is a testament to a life lived in the shadows for the sake of survival. These are not merely ruins, they are archives of human resilience. As you walk through these silent galleries, you are walking through the lived experience of thousands who refused to be victims. They took their fate into their own hands and carved it into the bedrock. They reimagined the earth not as a grave, but as a cradle, a place where life could be nurtured and protected even in the darkest of times. The ingenuity of their ventilation systems, the strength of their stone doors, and the complexity of their communal spaces all point to a high degree of organization and a shared commitment to the future. As you emerge from these depths, blinking in the harsh light of the present day, the world above looks different. You realize that the ground beneath your feet is not just solid earth, but a landscape filled with hidden stories of courage and endurance. The sanctuaries of silence were not just places of hiding, they were places of waiting. They were the underground reservoirs of human spirit, holding the seeds of culture and community until the storms above had passed. You carry with you the memory of that profound, protective quiet, a reminder that in the face of history's greatest challenges, humanity has always found a way to endure, often by seeking the deep, silent embrace of the earth. These underground towns are the silent monuments to our collective will to survive, carved into the very bones of the planet. The legacy of these hiding places continues to resonate. They remind us that the surface of the world is often a fragile and volatile place, and that our ancestors possessed the wisdom to look downward when the horizon turned dark. You have seen how the earth acts as a guardian, a provider of both physical and spiritual sanctuary. The story of these towns is a story of how we have used the silence of the underground to drown out the noise of conflict, and how we have used the darkness of the deep to preserve the light of our humanity. The journey through these sanctuaries of silence is a journey into the heart of what it means to be resilient, to be ingenious, and to be profoundly, stubbornly alive. The stones have spoken, and their story is one of a quiet, unyielding strength that resides just beneath the surface of our world. As you move forward, the echoes of those stone doors and the muffled prayers of the catacombs remain with you. They are the whispers of a past that refused to be silenced, a history that found its most secure refuge in the heart of the bedrock. You understand now that the underground is not just a place of minerals and roots, but a sanctuary for the human soul, a hidden map of our survival through the ages. The storms of history may still gather, but the earth remains, a timeless and silent protector for all those who know how to seek its deep embrace. We move now from the defensive silence of the past toward the quiet communities that continue to thrive within the earth today, where the lessons of concealment have evolved into a unique and modern way of life. You leave the ancient, layered histories of the Mediterranean behind and find yourself transported to a landscape that feels altogether different, a place where the earth is old and the air is wide. You are standing in the heart of the Australian outback, a territory defined by its vastness and its unforgiving light. Above you, the sky is a blinding, unblinking dome of blue, stretching toward horizons that never seem to arrive. The ground beneath your boots is a parched, dusty ochre, crusted with the salt of ancient seas and baked into a brittle hardness by a sun that knows no mercy. Here, the heat is not merely a temperature. It is a physical force, a heavy, invisible hand pressing down upon the land, making the air itself shimmer and dance in deceptive mirages. But as you look across this lunar landscape, you begin to see small, white mounds rising like scattered snowdrifts against the red earth. You are standing above a treasure house, a place where the very stones under your feet hold the colors of the nebula. This is the beginning of a new subterranean story, one born of a lucky discovery and a desperate need for shade. Picture a young boy named William Hutchison. The year is 1915. He is only 14 years old, traveling with his father and a small party of gold prospectors in a region then known as the Stuart Range. They are searching for water and wealth in a land that seems determined to withhold both. The expedition is arduous. The horses are weary, their heads bowed against the relentless dust. Water is scarce, a luxury hidden in rare soaks and rocky depressions. One evening, while the men are busy setting up camp, young William wanders away, perhaps drawn by a strange shimmer on the ground or the promise of a cooler gully. When he returns, he is not carrying the water they so desperately need. Instead, he holds out a handful of stones that catch the dying light, flickering with internal fires of violet, green, and gold. He has found the desert pea, the precious opal. This discovery sparked a transformation that would forever change the face of the Australian desert. But the rush for opals was met with a brutal reality. The miners who flocked to the region found a land that was practically uninhabitable during the summer months. Temperatures frequently soared past 110 degrees Fahrenheit. The wind was a hot blast that carried a fine, choking dust, and the flies were a persistent, maddening plague. There were no trees for timber, no stone for traditional building, and the cost of transporting materials across the trackless desert was prohibitive. The surface offered nothing but hardship. Think of the men who arrived here just a few years later, in 1919. These were soldiers returning from the First World War, men who had spent years in the trenches of France and Belgium. They were weary of the sun, weary of the open sky, and intimately familiar with the protective embrace of the earth. When they encountered the blistering heat of the Stuart Range, they did not see a barrier. They saw an opportunity. They knew that a few feet beneath the surface, the temperature remained constant, a cool and steady 75 degrees Fahrenheit, regardless of the furnace-like conditions above. Using the very tools they employed to extract the opals, they began to carve out small, rudimentary shelters in the sides of the hills. They were not just mining for gems anymore. They were mining for a home. You can almost feel the weight of their picks as they strike the soft, white sandstone. It is a satisfying sound, a rhythmic thud that echoes through the silence of the desert. The rock here is unique. It is easy to carve yet remarkably stable, allowing for the creation of wide, unsupported ceilings. As these early miners dug deeper, they discovered that they could create entire rooms, complete with alcoves for sleeping and shelves for their meager belongings. They called these dwellings dugouts. For these men, the dugout was a sanctuary. It was a place where they could escape the blinding glare of the sun, the stinging dust, and the constant hum of insects. It was a world of quiet, of cool white walls, and of profound stillness. Feel the transition as you step from the surface into one of these early dugouts. The glare of the desert vanishes, replaced by a soft, diffused light. The air is immediately different, losing its dry, searing edge and becoming cool and still. You notice the texture of the walls, the swirling patterns of the sandstone, the pale pinks and creams of the earth itself. There is no need for windows here. The thick layers of rock provide all the insulation a person could desire. The silence is absolute, a deep and heavy hush that seems to press against your ears. This was the birth of Kuba Pidi, a name derived from the local Aboriginal phrase Kupa Paitai, which translates roughly to white man in a hole. It was a name given in observation, but it became a badge of pride for a community that had found a way to thrive where others saw only desolation. Before Kuba Pd became the opal capital of the world, there was another place that paved the way for this subterranean lifestyle. Travel further east, to the rugged hills of New South Wales, to a town called White Cliffs. In the late 1880s, opals were discovered here as well, and by the turn of the century, a bustling community had formed. But like Kuba Pd, White Cliffs was a furnace. At its peak, the town had a population of several thousand people, but as you looked across the landscape, you would see very few buildings. The majority of the residents lived underground. Imagine the social life of White Cliffs at the turn of the century. There were underground shops, underground bars, and even a subterranean newspaper. You could walk through a network of tunnels and find people playing billiards or sharing a meal, all while the surface world baked under a relentless sun. This was the first true test of an underground society in Australia. It proved that humanity could not only survive beneath the earth but create a vibrant, functioning community. White Cliffs provided the blueprint, the proof of concept that would later be perfected in the white sandstone hills of Kuba Pd. Return now to the red heart of South Australia. As the decades passed, the dugouts of Kuba Pd evolved from simple miners' shelters into sophisticated homes. What began as a necessity became a preferred way of life. People realized that living underground was not just about escaping the heat. It was about comfort, peace, and a unique sense of security. They began to use modern tunneling machines, powerful circular saws that could carve out a room in a matter of hours, leaving behind smooth, beautifully patterned walls that looked like petrified wood. Picture a modern dugout today. You enter through a simple doorway set into a hillside, perhaps decorated with a few hardy desert plants. Inside, you find a home that is as spacious and well-appointed as any on the surface. There are multiple bedrooms, a modern kitchen, and bathrooms with tiled floors. Some homes even feature underground swimming pools, carved directly into the rock, where the water stays cool and inviting year-round. The ceilings are high and vaulted, painted white to reflect the light, creating a sense of openness that defies the reality of being beneath the earth. You notice the clever ways light is brought into these spaces. Some homeowners use light shafts, vertical tunnels that reach up to the surface to capture the sun's rays and funnel them deep into the living areas. Others rely on soft, warm electric lighting that highlights the natural beauty of the stone. There is a sense of calm here that is hard to find anywhere else. The thick walls of rock act as a perfect sound barrier. You can be just a few hundred yards from a busy road or a working mine, and yet, inside your dugout, you hear nothing but the gentle hum of your own life. It is a tranquility that encourages deep rest and quiet reflection. Think of the community that has grown around this underground existence. In Kuba Pd, the boundaries between work and home are often blurred. A person might decide they need an extra bedroom and simply rent a tunneling machine for a weekend to carve one out. In the process, they might strike a vein of opal, paying for their home renovation with the treasures they find in their own walls. This direct connection to the earth creates a unique sense of place. The residents here are not just living on the land. They are living in it. This interdependence extends to the social fabric of the town. There are underground churches where the congregations gather in the cool quiet to worship. There are underground art galleries showcasing the work of local artists who find inspiration in the colors of the opal and the textures of the stone. There are even underground hotels where visitors can experience the silence of the earth for themselves. You realize that this is not a town in retreat. It is a town that has embraced its environment, turning a hostile landscape into a place of comfort and wonder. As you walk the dusty streets of Kuba Pd today, the true town remains largely hidden. You see the mounds of discarded earth, the ventilation shafts poking through the ground like strange metallic flowers, and the simple doorways that lead to a hidden world. It is a place of contradictions. A landscape that looks like the moon but hides a labyrinth of comfort. A place where the sun is an enemy but the earth is a friend. The birth of Cuba Pedy and the early days of White Cliffs represent a remarkable chapter in the story of human ingenuity. They remind us that when faced with extreme challenges, we do not simply endure. We adapt. We reimagine. We carve our lives into the very bedrock of our world, finding beauty and solace in the most unexpected places. The white mounds of the outback stand as monuments to this spirit, silent guardians of a history that runs deep beneath the surface. You stand on a shimmering, heat-hazed plain where the horizon seems to vibrate with an unyielding energy. The sun is no longer just a source of light, it is a weight, a relentless hammer beating down on the red, cracked earth. Above ground, the air is a thick, dry curtain of heat that catches in your throat, and the world is washed out in a blinding, overexposed white. Every movement feels like a struggle against the very atmosphere. But now, feel the cool, gentle pull downwards. You step toward a modest opening in a low, dusty hillside, and as you cross the threshold, the world transforms. You have just entered the heart of a sun-scorched frontier, a realm where humanity has traded the vast, hostile sky for the protective, silent embrace of the bedrock. This is the reality of life in the underground towns of the Australian outback, a place where ingenuity is born of necessity and comfort is carved from the very stone. The shimmering heat you left behind becomes a distant memory the moment you descend into the dugout. Feel the steady, unchanging temperature that immediately greets you. It is a natural, effortless cool, maintained by the thick layers of sandstone that act as a magnificent insulator. While the surface world may be suffering through 120 degrees Fahrenheit, down here, the earth keeps a constant, temperate peace at around 75 degrees. This consistent thermal stability is not merely a convenience, it is the essence of survival on this frontier. It is a natural thermostat that never fails, a sanctuary that requires no power and fears no summer heat wave. Picture the soft glow of interior lights reflecting off the rich, reddish ochre walls, and the quiet hum of earth around you as you begin to explore this labyrinth of comfort. This life was not chosen for its novelty, but for its resilience. Imagine the early pioneers of the opal trade, arriving in a landscape that seemed determined to drive them away. They found wealth in the shimmering stones buried deep, but they found only hardship on the surface. Dust storms would roll across the plains like solid walls of grit, choking the lungs and burying tents in minutes. The sun would bake the timber of any structure until it cracked and splintered. It was in these crucible moments that the miners realized the earth was not just their workplace, but their protector. They began to expand their mines into homes, realizing that the same ground they toiled in offered a refuge more stable than any building could provide. They did not just find opals, they found a way to live. As you walk deeper into a typical dugout, listen closely. The profound quiet of the earth is almost palpable. Above ground, the wind might be howling, whipping red dust into a frenzy, but down here, there is a stillness that encourages calm and introspection. The thick layers of sandstone absorb and muffle every sound from the world above. It is a quiet unlike any other, not an empty silence, but a soft resonance that speaks of timeless stability. This deep tranquility provided a refuge from the constant anxieties of life exposed to the elements. For those living on the edge of the desert, this subterranean quiet offered an unparalleled sanctuary, a place where the mind could finally rest away from the roar of the storms. Look around at the architecture of these dwellings. These are not merely holes in the ground, they are intricate, living archives of human adaptation. The walls are not plastered or painted in the traditional sense, but are often left as raw, polished sandstone, revealing the beautiful, swirling patterns of geological history. You can see the marks of the machines that carved these spaces, rhythmic lines that tell a story of labor and vision. In some rooms, you might find fossilized shells or ancient mineral veins embedded in the ceiling, a reminder that your living room was once part of an ancient seabed. This is a history lesson that you can touch, a home that is literally part of the planet. Of course, this profound quiet comes with a unique relationship to light. Natural light does not penetrate these depths in the way it does on the surface. Instead, you are enveloped in a soft, curated glow. Ingenious light shafts are often engineered to capture sunbeams from the surface, funneling them down through narrow tubes to illuminate the interior with a natural, diffused radiance. Today, this is supplemented by warm electric lights, carefully placed to highlight the unique textures of the rock. This controlled illumination creates an intimate atmosphere where every carving and every human face is highlighted with deliberate care. It fosters a different rhythm of life, one less tied to the sun's harsh command and more attuned to the internal clock of the community. Think of the ingenuity required to make such a life possible. These subterranean spaces are not just about carving rooms, they are about managing the very breath of the community. You might notice small, unassuming pipes or vents poking through the surface of the hills above. These are the lungs of the town. These ventilation shafts are carefully placed to ensure a constant flow of fresh air, drawing out the warmth of human activity and pulling in the cool breath of the earth. In a world where rainfall is a rare blessing, systems for collecting every drop of water and managing waste must be meticulously planned. These are not trivial challenges. They demanded generations of accumulated knowledge and a deep understanding of geology long before modern engineering took hold. What kind of community flourishes in such an environment? In these dugouts, neighbors are not just next door, they are often literally connected by a shared wall of earth. This close proximity, born of necessity, fosters a unique solidarity. In a town carved from rock, every resource is a testament to collective effort. This fosters a strong communal bond where reliance on one another is a fundamental aspect of daily existence. You would find yourself part of a collective endeavor, where decisions about ventilation or structural integrity are shared responsibilities. It is a world where the isolation of the desert is countered by the literal connection of your homes. Life on this sun-scorched frontier also means a constant battle with the dust. On the surface, the fine, red powder permeates everything, coating clothes, furniture, and lungs. But the dugout offers a clean, filtered existence. The earth acts as a natural filter, and the enclosed nature of the homes keeps the grit at bay. This cleanliness is a luxury in a desert environment, a physical relief that allows the inhabitants to maintain a sense of order and dignity amidst the chaos of the outback. It is another layer of the protection offered by the earth, a barrier against the relentless movement of the desert floor. As you explore further, you find that this underground world is not limited to private homes. You might find yourself walking into an underground church, where the acoustics of the rock lend a haunting, beautiful depth to every song and prayer. You might visit an underground bookstore or a jewelry shop where the opals on display seem to glow with a fire that matches the passion of the people who found them. There are even underground hotels and pubs, where travelers can escape the blinding light of the outback and share a cold drink in the cool, earthy silence. This is a fully realized society, a vibrant culture that has redefined what a town should look like. The labyrinth of comfort is not just about the physical structures, but also the intricate social systems developed to thrive in them. Ingenuity extends beyond excavation. It encompasses the remarkable ways people have learned to cultivate food in artificial light or how they have turned the harshness of the desert into a sustainable way of life. Imagine the careful planning required to prevent collapses or manage drainage in an environment where gravity naturally pulls everything downwards. These people have traced a lineage of adaptation that predates written history, following the paths of ancestors who saw not an empty void beneath them, but an unyielding, protective embrace. As you walk through these subterranean streets, you are not just observing history, you are experiencing it. You feel the cool rock against your hand, you breathe the air conditioned by the stone, and you hear the muffled echoes of life lived beneath the surface. This is a lesson in resilience, innovation, and an unwavering spirit in the face of adversity. Each tunnel and each carved dwelling is a chapter in a continuous narrative of human grit. These hidden veins of history run deep, revealing the incredible spectrum of human adaptability. They whisper stories of a people who chose to live differently, who reimagined what home could truly be when the world above became too much to bear. Our journey through this sun-scorched frontier reveals that the earth is not just a barrier, but a provider of stability. These underground towns, whether born of the opal rush or the need for shelter, reflect a deep human understanding of the environment. They teach us about living within limits and the extraordinary lengths people will go to create a safe, stable home. As you emerge from the depths, blinking in the harsh evening glow of the Australian desert, you carry with you the tangible memory of the cool, quiet stone. You have experienced a glimpse into a world where the sun dares not tread, where human ingenuity blossomed in the dark, and where the dust of the frontier is left behind for the peace of the deep. This journey into the hidden places of our planet continues to uncover the secrets held within these ancient, earthbound communities, revealing that sometimes, the best way to move forward is to dig in. The sun-baked plains of Turkey and the red deserts of Australia seem a world away now. You are leaving behind the natural refuge of soft tuff and sandstone, the organic comfort of the ancient earth. Instead, feel the texture change under your fingertips. It is no longer the warmth of living rock, but the cold, unforgiving grit of reinforced concrete and the smooth, sterile touch of painted steel. The air carries a different weight here, a sharp, metallic tang of ozone, diesel, and the faint, persistent scent of old floor wax. You are about to descend into a world born not of a need for climate or community, but of a desperate, existential dread. This is the subterranean heart of the Cold War, a landscape carved out during a time when the horizon itself felt fragile, and the sky held the promise of a blinding, final light. Imagine the world above in the middle of the 20th century. It was a time of grand ideologies and even grander fears. The surface world was divided by an invisible line, but beneath that line, a very real, very physical architecture was being constructed. For those living behind the Iron Curtain, the earth was not just a provider, it was a shield against a nightmare that felt closer with every passing day. You are stepping into the basement of empires, a hidden world of command centers, submarine pens, and entire districts designed to function when the world above had ceased to breathe. Feel the descent. You are not walking down a gentle slope, but are perhaps being carried by a deep, rumbling elevator, or descending an endless flight of stairs that seems to vibrate with a low-frequency energy. This is the Moscow Metro. Above ground, it is a transit system of unparalleled beauty, a series of palaces for the people adorned with marble, mosaics, and grand chandeliers. But as you go deeper, past the art and the propaganda, the true nature of this subterranean giant reveals itself. These stations were engineered to be more than just stops on a commute. They were designed to double as the largest nuclear fallout shelters on the planet. Look closely at the architecture. Notice the massive, hermetic steel doors tucked into the corners of the tunnels, designed to seal shut in a matter of seconds. Envision these grand halls, normally filled with the bustle of commuters, transformed into a sprawling refuge for millions. The chandeliers would dim, the escalators would halt, and the thick layers of earth and concrete would become the only thing standing between the population and a world rendered uninhabitable. It is a dual existence, a place of daily utility that carries the heavy burden of a secret purpose. The metro is a living archive of a time when the city above was considered a target, and the city below was the only hope for survival. Now, journey deeper still, beneath the Taganskaya hill in the heart of the Russian capital. You are 65 meters below the surface, a depth that seems to compress the very air around you. You have entered Bunker 42. Imagine the workers who tunneled here in the dark of night during the 1950s, their massive excavations masked by the roar of the metro trains running just meters away. You walk through 4 massive tunnels, each one a cylinder of steel and concrete, connected by a labyrinth of narrow corridors. The walls here are not soft earth, they are thick plates of iron, bolted together with thousands of rivets to withstand a shockwave that would flatten everything above. Listen to the sounds of this place. The world above is completely gone. There is no wind, no traffic, no birdsong. Instead, there is the mechanical heartbeat of the fortress. The hum of the air filtration system is a constant, low-frequency thrum that settles in your bones, a reminder that every breath you take is a product of engineering. Occasionally, you might hear a distant, rhythmic thud, a phantom vibration from the metro trains passing in the distance, a ghostly reminder of the world you left behind. It is a place of absolute isolation, where time is measured not by the movement of the sun, but by the steady glow of fluorescent lights and the ticking of clocks in command rooms. Think of the men who once populated these halls. They sat before banks of glowing screens and heavy, Bakelite telephones, their lives dedicated to the monitoring of a horizon they would never see. This was a command post for long-range aviation, a place where the orders for a final strike would have been received and relayed. The atmosphere is one of sterile, high-stakes tension. You can almost feel the weight of the decisions that were prepared for here, the cold logic of deterrence carved into the very walls. It is a town built for the end of time, a community of specialists living in a state of perpetual readiness. The ingenuity required to sustain life at this depth is staggering. You pass through rooms filled with massive diesel generators, their steel frames painted a dull industrial green. You see the complex plumbing that would have recycled water from deep subterranean wells, and the kitchens designed to feed thousands of people for months on end. Every resource was calculated, every contingency planned for. It is a testament to human resilience, certainly, but also to the profound fear that gripped a generation. This was a world that did not expect to return to the surface, a civilization that had accepted the earth as its final, unyielding guardian. Leaving the heart of the city, travel now to the edge of the Black Sea, to the hidden inlet of Balaclava. Here, a mountain of solid rock was hollowed out to create a sanctuary for a different kind of power. You stand at the entrance of a tunnel that disappears into the base of a cliff. Inside, the air is damp and cool, smelling of salt water and heavy oil. This is Object 825 GTS, a secret submarine base designed to be invisible from the air and impenetrable from the sea. Imagine the silent, dark water inside the mountain. A massive canal runs through the center of the complex, wide enough for steel-hulled submarines to glide through. These vessels would enter from the sea, passing through a concealed opening, and find themselves in a subterranean dockyard where they could be repaired, refueled, and rearmed in total secrecy. The mountain above provides a shield capable of surviving a direct nuclear hit. It is a cathedral of military engineering, where the natural strength of the rock was harnessed to hide a fleet capable of ending the world. As you walk along the concrete piers, the silence is profound. The water is still, reflecting the dim lights of the vaulted ceiling. You see the heavy blast doors, weighing hundreds of tons, that would have sealed the complex from the ocean. You see the living quarters for the sailors and the workers, cramped, functional rooms that offer a stark contrast to the grand stations of the Moscow metro. This was not a palace for the people, it was a hidden dagger, a secret world that existed in the shadows of the Cold War. What does it do to the human spirit to live and work in such a place? In the ancient underground towns, there was a sense of organic growth, of rooms following the natural veins of the earth. But here, Everything is geometric, planned, and sterile. The walls do not whisper stories of ancient ancestors, they broadcast the directives of the state. There is a psychological toll to living within a machine, a sense of being a small part of a vast, cold mechanism. And yet, the same human impulse to seek sanctuary is present. Whether fleeing a desert sun or a nuclear winter, humanity turns to the earth for protection. These Cold War bunkers and bases represent a unique chapter in the story of underground towns. They are the artifacts of a civilization that became so powerful it feared its own destruction. They are monuments to a time when peace was maintained through the promise of mutual devastation, and safety was found only by digging deeper into the dark. You can feel the shadows of that era here, the lingering ghost of a paranoia that reshaped the planet. As you begin to ascend, leaving the industrial chill of the basement behind, the memory of the reinforced concrete stays with you. You have seen how the earth was used not just for survival, but as a strategic asset, a hidden layer of the world where the Cold War was fought in silence. The transition from the grand mosaics of the metro to the dark, water-filled tunnels of Balaclava reveals the full spectrum of this subterranean era. It was a world within a world, a secret history etched into the very foundation of the modern age. You emerge into the light of the surface world, and for a moment, the sky feels impossibly vast and fragile. You carry with you the knowledge of what lies beneath, the silent fortresses and the hidden cities that still wait in the dark. The story of our life underground is not just a tale of ancient history or modern comfort. It is a story of how we respond to our greatest challenges. In the 20th century, we responded by building a world beneath our feet that was as complex, as terrifying, and as ingenious as the one we left above. The basement of the Iron Curtain remains a silent witness to a time when we looked to the deep earth to protect us from ourselves. We move now from the soft, volcanic tuff of the ancient world and the sun-bleached sandstone of the Australian outback into a different era. Imagine leaving the warm, organic curves of a hand-carved cave and stepping into a realm defined by right angles, smooth gray surfaces, and the industrial strength of the modern age. You are entering the concrete cavern. This is where the ancient impulse to burrow meets the relentless progress of the 20th century. Picture a landscape not of natural stone, but of reinforced aggregate and steel, a world where the earth has been hollowed out on a massive scale to create urban arteries and hidden refuges that defy the limitations of the surface. Feel the texture of the wall beside you. It is no longer the crumbly, ancient rock that tells a story of geological eons. Instead, it is the cool, unyielding surface of poured concrete, a man-made stone engineered for endurance and strength. This material changed everything. It allowed humanity to go deeper, to build wider, and to create entire cities that could support the weight of skyscrapers and the thundering pulse of traffic above. As you walk through these modern tunnels, you are moving through the skeleton of a subterranean giant, a labyrinth of comfort and utility that serves as the invisible foundation of the modern world. Listen to the sound of this environment. It is not the profound, heavy silence of the deep earth you encountered in earlier chapters. Here, the silence is replaced by a persistent, mechanical hum. This is the sound of life support. You hear the rhythmic intake of massive ventilation fans, the distant, muffled vibration of a subway train, and the quiet hiss of steam pipes. This is the heartbeat of the concrete city, a constant reminder of the incredible engineering required to keep a modern community breathing beneath the surface. It is a technological symphony, a testament to our ability to tame the underground and turn it into a place of predictable, climate-controlled order. Where did this modern rise begin? To find the roots of the concrete city, we must look to a time of global anxiety and the desperate need for collective safety. Imagine a city gripped by the fear of the Cold War, where the sky was no longer a source of beauty but a potential path for destruction. In the late 1960s, the city of Beijing began a project of staggering proportions. Beneath the bustling streets and historic alleyways, a second city was born. Known as Dishiacheng, this was a defensive labyrinth designed to house millions of people in the event of an aerial attack. Picture the scene during its construction. Thousands of citizens, from students to office workers, labored alongside engineers to carve out miles of tunnels. They used simple tools but reinforced their work with the modern strength of concrete and steel. This was not just a bunker, it was an underground urban plan. There were designated areas for hospitals, schools, theaters, and even grain storage. As you wander through these gray passages today, you can still see the markings of a world prepared for the unthinkable. The air here is still and carries the faint scent of old cement and damp iron. It is a monument to a time when our ingenuity was driven by the shadow of conflict, leading us to create a concrete mirror of the world above. The rise of the subterranean city was not always born of fear, however. In other parts of the world, it was born of a battle against the elements themselves. Journey now to Montreal, Canada, a place where the winter wind can cut through the thickest coat and the snow can bury the city in a white shroud for months. Here, the solution was not to hide from a human enemy, but to escape the brutal climate. What began as a simple connection between a few buildings grew into the RSO, a sprawling underground network that covers over 20 miles of tunnels and covers millions of square feet. Step into this vibrant, concrete world. You find yourself in a space that feels entirely separate from the frozen streets above. The light is bright and constant, provided by thousands of modern fixtures that banish any sense of being underground. You see shoppers moving through high-end malls, office workers grabbing lunch in bustling food courts, and students heading to university classes. This is a city that never feels the bite of the frost or the dampness of the rain. The concrete walls here are often disguised by glass, art, and vibrant storefronts, creating an illusion of a surface world that has simply been tucked away for safekeeping. It is a triumph of urban planning, where the subterranean has become a preferred destination rather than a last resort. Think about the sheer scale of the engineering required to maintain such a place. Beneath the concrete floors you walk upon lies a complex web of drainage systems, electrical grids, and waste management facilities. In a natural cave, gravity and geology handle the details. In the concrete cavern, every drop of water must be pumped, and every breath of air must be filtered and moved by machines. You are witnessing a masterpiece of artificial ecology. The designers of these spaces had to account for the immense pressure of the earth, the shifting of the water table, and the psychological needs of the people who would inhabit them. They created a world where the boundaries between the natural and the man-made have completely blurred. Of course, living and working within these concrete veins changes your perspective on the environment. Look around you at the way light is used. In the ancient towns of Cappadocia, light was a precious gift from the sun, funneled down through deep shafts. In the modern subterranean city, light is a commodity. It is curated to keep you alert, to encourage you to shop, or to guide you toward your destination. This constant, artificial glow creates a different rhythm of life. There is no sunset here, no gradual transition into the quiet of the night. The concrete city is always on, its lights always burning, creating a sense of perpetual daytime that can be both liberating and disorienting. You might wonder how a community maintains its sense of connection in such a manufactured environment. In a concrete city, neighbors are connected by elevators and stairwells rather than mountain paths. The shared walls are not of living rock but of precast panels. Yet, the same interdependence we saw in the ancient worlds persists here. The survival of the community depends on the shared trust in the systems that provide air and power. There is a unique solidarity in being part of an underground network, a feeling of being inside a great machine that requires the cooperation of everyone to function. Whether it is the transit workers keeping the trains moving or the technicians monitoring the air quality, the concrete cavern is a testament to collective human effort. The transition from the ancient rock to the modern concrete represents a shift in our relationship with the earth. We no longer just seek shelter within it, we impose our own structures upon it. We have learned to mold the underground into whatever shape we require, whether it is a defensive fortress or a climate-controlled shopping district. These concrete caverns are the high-tech descendants of the first burrows our ancestors dug into the hillsides. They reflect our growing confidence in our ability to engineer our way out of any challenge, whether that challenge is a cold war or a cold winter. As you explore the depths of these modern labyrinths, you begin to see the beauty in their utilitarian design. There is a certain grace in the sweeping curves of a concrete subway vault and a sense of awe in the massive pillars that hold up the weight of a bustling metropolis. You are walking through a landscape that is entirely a product of human imagination and skill. It is a world where the raw power of the earth has been contained and harnessed, turned into a backdrop for the daily routines of millions. This is the ultimate expression of human adaptation, a way of life that exists entirely on our own terms, carved out of the darkness with the tools of the industrial age. We are tracing a journey from the primitive to the profound. Each concrete passage and steel-reinforced chamber is a chapter in the story of how we learned to conquer the underground. The secrets of the earth are now met with the answers of the engineer. But even in these modern spaces, the basic human needs remain the same. We seek safety, we seek comfort, and we seek the company of others. The concrete cavern provides all of these, wrapped in a shell of modern reliability. Our journey through these hidden veins of history has shown us that whether we use a bone tool or a tunneling machine, our desire to build a world beneath our feet is a fundamental part of who we are. As you prepare to move further into the story of these subterranean worlds, take one last look at the gray, smooth walls of the concrete city. Feel the steady vibration of the machines and breathe in the cool, filtered air. You have seen how humanity has moved from the natural embrace of the stone into the engineered comfort of the modern cavern. This is a story of progress, of resilience, and of a relentless spirit that refuses to be limited by the surface of the planet. The concrete city is not just a place to hide or a place to shop. It is a vision of the future, a sign that our ability to create a home can reach as deep as our will can take us. We have only begun to see what is possible when we combine the ancient urge to burrow with the modern power of concrete. Our exploration of these subterranean wonders continues, revealing ever deeper layers of ingenuity and adaptation. Imagine the immense weight of the world resting just above your head. Thousands of tons of ancient soil, solid rock, and the very foundations of nature itself, all pressing down with a gravity that seems almost palpable. To live here, to thrive within this deep embrace, requires more than just a strong will or a sharp chisel. It requires a mastery over the invisible forces that govern our existence. We are now entering the realm of the silent architects, the engineers of the deep who learn to harness breath, capture light, and negotiate with the relentless pull of gravity. This is not merely about carving a hole in the earth. It is about creating a living, breathing ecosystem where none should naturally exist. It is the story of how humanity turned a cold, dark void into a labyrinth of comfort and sophisticated survival. Feel the air around you. In a conventional home, we take for granted the windows we can throw open or the gentle breeze that drifts through a doorway. Underground, air is a precious commodity, a resource that must be invited, guided, and constantly renewed. This is the first great hurdle of invisible engineering, the breath of the earth. Picture the ancient builders in Cappadocia or the early miners in Australia. They understood that without movement, the air becomes heavy, laden with the moisture of the rock and the exhaled breath of the community. To solve this, they looked to the surface and saw the wind as a force they could capture and command. They engineered great shafts, some plunging hundreds of feet straight into the dark, acting as giant lungs for the city below. These are not simple holes. They are carefully positioned to take advantage of air pressure differentials. As the sun warms the surface, it creates a vacuum that pulls stale air up and out, while cool, fresh air is sucked down through secondary vents. This is a natural convection system, a thermal siphon that operates without a single moving part. You might stand at the bottom of one of these shafts and feel a constant, refreshing draft, a heartbeat of moving air that keeps the subterranean world vibrant and alive. In modern underground towns, this ancient wisdom is augmented by high-efficiency fans and filtration systems, but the principle remains the same. The earth must breathe, and the engineers ensure that every chamber, no matter how deep, is part of that vital respiration. Look around at the illumination. It is a curated glow, a stolen piece of the day brought into the night of the earth. This is the second challenge, the engineering of light. Natural light is the lifeblood of our psychological well-being, yet it does not naturally penetrate these depths. In the ancient world, this meant the clever placement of light wells, openings angled precisely to catch the midday sun and bounce its rays off polished white walls deep into the living chambers. Imagine a series of mirrors or highly reflective stones, positioned with a sailor's precision to funnel a single beam of sun through a labyrinth of tunnels until it blooms into a soft radiance in a family living room. In today's underground communities, this engineering has reached a pinnacle of sophistication. We see the use of light pipes, reflective tubes that can transport actual sunlight around corners and through thick layers of bedrock, delivering the full spectrum of the sun to gardens and workspaces far below. Where the sun cannot reach, artificial systems take over, but they are not merely bulbs hanging from a wire. They are engineered to mimic the circadian rhythms of the surface. The light shifts from a crisp, blue-white in the morning to a warm, amber glow in the evening, tricking the human mind into maintaining its natural cycle. This controlled illumination creates an intimate, almost theatrical atmosphere, where every carved corner and every human face is highlighted with deliberate care. It is an engineering of the spirit as much as the eyes. Consider now the ceiling above you. Why does it not collapse? This is the third pillar of invisible engineering, the negotiation with gravity. The weight of the earth is a constant, pressing reality. To stand beneath it without fear requires an understanding of structural integrity that predates our modern textbooks. The engineers of the deep learned that the rock itself is both the enemy and the ally. They used the principle of the arch, the strongest shape in nature, carving it into the ceilings of their great halls. By shaping the roof into a curve, the weight of the world above is not held up by the strength of the material alone, but is distributed outward and downward into the thick, supporting walls. In many places, you will see massive pillars of stone. These were not brought in from the outside. They are living rock, left behind by the excavators as they hollowed out the space. These pillars are the anchors of the community, the silent giants that hold the sky at bay. The engineering here is a dance of subtraction. One must know exactly how much rock to take and exactly how much to leave. Too much, and the structural integrity is compromised. Too much remaining, and the living space is cramped. It is a delicate balance, a conversation with the geology of the region. Whether it is the soft volcanic tuff of Turkey or the sturdy sandstone of Australia, the invisible hand of gravity dictates the very shape of the architecture. And what of the water? In a world where gravity naturally pulls every drop downward, the underground town faces a unique threat. Without proper engineering, these sanctuaries would quickly become damp, muddy basins. This is the mastery of drainage. Imagine a network of hidden channels, carved into the floors and hidden behind the walls, all sloping gently toward a central sump or a deep, subterranean aquifer. These systems ensure that groundwater is not a destroyer, but a resource. In many ancient underground cities, these drainage channels also served as a way to collect and store precious rainwater, directing it into massive cisterns that could sustain the population for months. It is a closed loop of survival, where the very forces that threaten the home are turned into the tools that support it. As you walk through these streets, you are surrounded by these silent successes. You do not hear the wind, but you feel its breath. You do not see the sun, but you bask in its light. You do not think of the thousands of tons of rock above you, because the engineering has made that weight feel as light as a feather. This is the triumph of the invisible. It is a testament to the culmination of millennia of human adaptation, a response to challenges so profound that they forced us to reimagine the very nature of what a building could be. These subterranean spaces are not merely holes in the ground. They are intricate, living archives of human ingenuity. Every tunnel, every ventilation shaft, and every carved archway is a chapter in a story of resilience. We are tracing a lineage of builders who saw not an empty void beneath them, but an unyielding, protective embrace. They saw a world where they could control the environment in ways the surface world never could. They traded the wild fluctuations of the climate for a steady, unchanging sanctuary. They traded the chaos of the wind for a curated breath. Think of the social systems that flourish when the engineering is successful. In a world carved from rock, every resource is a testament to collective effort. The invisible engineering fosters a unique solidarity. When you share a ventilation shaft with your neighbor, or when your lighting depends on a communal light well, you are no longer an island. You are part of a collective endeavor, each person contributing to the maintenance of the whole. This is the hidden heart of the underground town. The physical structures dictate a different rhythm of life, one less tied to the sun's harsh command and more attuned to the internal clock of the community. The labyrinth of comfort is not a happy accident. It is the result of generations of accumulated knowledge, of trial and error, and of a deep understanding of geology and physics long before those terms even existed. As we continue to explore these hidden veins of history, we begin to see that the underground world is not a place of darkness and dampness, but a masterpiece of human capability. It challenges our preconceived notions of what a home should look like and how a town should function. As you emerge from these depths, blinking in the harsh sunlight of the surface, you carry with you the tangible memory of the cool, quiet earth and the invisible hands that made it habitable. You understand now, not just intellectually, but viscerally, how breath, light, and gravity were mastered to create entire civilizations where few would think to look. The engineering of the deep is a silent guardian, a protector that has allowed humanity to carve a home within the very heart of the planet. Our journey through these wonders is far from over, as we look next at the specific ways these hidden cities have managed the most vital resource of all, the life-giving flow of water in a world of stone. You have traced the life-giving flow of water through veins of stone and felt the structural embrace of the earth. But now we must turn our gaze toward a landscape far more complex and fragile than any rock formation. Imagine, if you will, the internal world of a person who has chosen to step away from the celestial cycle of dawn and dusk. Picture yourself standing in a corridor where the sun is not a daily visitor, but a distant, almost mythical presence. We have marveled at the physical engineering required to carve these cities, but what of the psychological engineering necessary to survive them? This is where our journey takes a deeper, more intimate turn as we explore the shadow psyche, the profound and often hidden human cost of a life lived in constant night. Feel the heavy stillness that settles over you when the natural markers of time are removed. Above ground, your mind is tethered to the movement of the sun. The shifting of shadows across a floor, the gradual reddening of the evening sky, and the cool blue of a breaking dawn all serve as silent conductors for your internal orchestra. Your hormones, your energy levels, and your very mood are part of a rhythmic dance with the cosmos. But here, beneath the mantle of the earth, that connection is severed. You are enveloped in a curated, artificial environment where time is no longer a natural flow, but a human construction. This disruption of the circadian rhythm is perhaps the first and most persistent challenge to the subterranean mind. It is a quiet, persistent weight that can lead to a strange sense of displacement, as if your body is searching for a signal that never arrives. Imagine the earliest dwellers in places like Durinkui, hidden away for months as invaders roamed the surface. They lived by the flickering orange light of linseed oil lamps, their world defined by the radius of a small, dancing flame. In this perpetual twilight, the boundaries between waking and dreaming can begin to blur. For these ancient people, the darkness was not just an absence of light, it was a physical presence that pressed against the skin. It required a remarkable level of mental fortitude to maintain a sense of purpose and community when the very sky had been replaced by a ceiling of cold tufa rock. They had to create their own markers of time, using the rhythmic tolling of bells, the schedule of communal meals, or the steady progress of work to keep the creeping shadows of melancholy at bay. The quiet we admired in earlier segments also has a double edge. While it offers a sanctuary from the cacophony of the surface, it also forces a profound confrontation with the self. In the absolute stillness of the deep earth, the internal monologue grows louder. Every doubt, every anxiety, and every unspoken fear can echo with startling clarity when there is no wind to scatter them and no distant birdsong to provide a distraction. For some, this subterranean hush is a gateway to meditation and spiritual clarity. For others, it is a crucible where the mind can turn inward in ways that are unsettling. This is why the social fabric of these towns is so vital. The community is not just a support system for survival, it is a psychological bulkhead against the vast, silent pressure of the surrounding earth. Think of the social intensity that develops when your world is bounded by stone. In a typical surface town, you can walk out your door and lose yourself in the horizon. You can find a solitary hill or a distant forest where the presence of others vanishes. But in an underground city, there is no horizon. Your neighbors are not just nearby, they are often literally on the other side of a shared rock wall. You breathe the same circulated air and walk the same narrow corridors. This high degree of proximity creates a unique psychological environment known to some as the goldfish bowl effect. Every interaction is magnified. Every disagreement has the potential to resonate through the entire community. To thrive here, you must master the art of deep interdependence and radical patience. You are part of a collective consciousness, where the well-being of your neighbor is indistinguishably linked to your own mental stability. Yet, there is a strange and beautiful adaptation that occurs in this environment. As the eyes adjust to the soft, curated light, the other senses begin to heighten and transform. You might find yourself becoming acutely aware of the texture of the air, noticing the subtle changes in humidity that signal a shift in the ventilation or the presence of a group of people nearby. Your hearing becomes a tool of incredible precision, capable of identifying the specific rhythm of a friend's footsteps echoing from 3 levels above. This sensory retuning is a testament to human resilience. The mind, denied the vast visual spectacle of the surface, begins to find wonder in the micro details of its subterranean home. The subtle variations in the color of a mineral vein or the unique acoustic signature of a particular chamber become the new landmarks of your reality. But what of the long-term cost? For the miners of Kuba Pidi or the ancient refugees of central Anatolia, the decision to live underground was often driven by necessity, but it left a mark on the collective soul. There is a specific kind of resilience born in the dark, a quiet strength that comes from knowing you can endure the absence of the sun. However, historians and psychologists have often noted a recurring theme of vigilance in these cultures. When you live in a place built for protection and concealment, a certain degree of wariness can become part of your cultural DNA. The earth is your shield, but it is also a reminder that the world above was, at some point, a place of danger. This legacy of survival can manifest as a fierce pride and a deep, protective bond within the community, but it can also foster a sense of isolation from the rest of humanity. Consider the role of light in these hidden worlds. In modern underground dwellings, we use full-spectrum bulbs to mimic the sun, trying to trick our biology into feeling the warmth of a day that is not there. We paint walls in bright, reflective ochres and whites to push back the feeling of being enclosed. These are not just aesthetic choices, they are psychological defenses. They are an attempt to bring the sky into the stone. In the ancient world, this was achieved through ingenious light shafts that acted as periscopes for the soul, bringing a single, precious beam of true sunlight deep into the heart of the city. To stand in that beam, to feel the direct touch of the sun for even a few minutes, was likely a profound spiritual and psychological event for a subterranean dweller. It was a tether to the world above, a reminder that they were still children of the light, even as they made their home in the shadows. There is also the phenomenon of subterranean dreams. Those who live deep underground often report a change in the nature of their sleep. In the absolute darkness and perfect quiet of a dugout or a carved chamber, sleep can become deeper and more immersive than anything experienced on the surface. Without the intrusion of artificial city lights or the early morning clamor of birds and traffic, the dream state can feel more vivid, more real. For some, these dreams are filled with expansive landscapes and endless skies, as the mind compensates for its physical confinement. For others, the dreams are as grounded as the rock itself, focusing on the intricate pathways and communal bonds of their hidden life. This internal world becomes a vital second home, a place where the soul can fly even when the body is surrounded by 1,000 tons of earth. As you walk these silent streets in your mind, you must realize that these towns are not just monuments to engineering, but to human adaptability. The shadow psyche is not a broken thing, it is a transformed thing. It is a mind that has learned to find comfort in the hush, to find community in the close quarters, and to find light where none seems to exist. The human cost of constant night is high, demanding a sacrifice of the vastness of the sky and the natural rhythm of the day. But in return, it offers a unique kind of depth. It fosters a focus on the internal, a strengthening of the communal bond, and a profound appreciation for the simple, steady presence of the earth. We often think of darkness as a void, a place where things are lost. But for the people of the underground, the darkness is a canvas. It is a place where they have carved out not just homes, but an entire way of existing that challenges our most basic assumptions about what a human needs to be happy. They show us that while we are creatures of the sun, we are also masters of the dark. Our journey through these wonders is far from over, as we look next at the specific ways these hidden cities have managed the most vital resource of all, the life-giving flow of water in a world of stone. We will see how the same mind that learned to navigate the psychological shadows also learned to bend the very elements to its will, ensuring that even in the deepest reach of the earth, life could bloom and flourish. You stand in a corridor where the dust has begun to settle with a heavy and quiet finality. You are in a place where the air is perfectly still, yet it carries a new weight. It is the weight of absence. For thousands of years, these tunnels were alive with the vibrant sound of human voices, the rhythmic clatter of tools, and the low, comforting hum of communal survival. But now, as you run your hand along the smooth, cool rock, you feel a sense of departure. The walls, which once whispered of sanctuary and life, now hold the echoes of a people who decided to look upward once more. You are witnessing the transition from a living city to a silent relic. This is the story of why we surfaced, the moment when the Earth's embrace, after providing so much for so long, finally began to feel like a boundary instead of a home. Picture the slow and steady movement of humanity from the deep, protective womb of the earth back into the wide and unpredictable world above. The transition did not happen overnight. It was not a sudden flight born of panic, but a gradual realization. Imagine a family that had lived for generations in the temperate, unchanging calm of a dugout or a carved chamber. For them, the surface was a place of extreme danger, a realm of scorching sun and freezing wind. But as time passed, the world changed. The threats that had originally driven their ancestors into the bedrock began to fade into history. The marauding armies that once swept across the plains were replaced by organized states and peaceful trade. The defensive stone doors, once so vital for survival, began to gather dust as the need for secrecy vanished. Feel the pull of the horizon that eventually beckoned to these subterranean dwellers. There is a deep and primal part of the human spirit that longs for the open sky, for the sight of a sunrise that is not filtered through a ventilation shaft, and for the feeling of a breeze that has traveled across vast and open distances. As the external world became safer, the psychological cost of isolation began to outweigh the benefits of comfort. The profound quiet of the underground, which had once been a sanctuary from the noise of conflict, started to feel like a heavy silence. People began to yearn for the riotous color of a garden in full bloom, for the scent of rain hitting parched soil, and for the ability to walk for miles without hitting a stone wall. Listen to the changing sounds of the world above. The Industrial Revolution and the advent of modern technology played a crucial role in this great surfacing. For a long time, the Earth was the only natural thermostat available to humanity. It provided the only reliable protection against the elements. But then came the mastery of new materials and new energies. Imagine the arrival of glass and steel, which allowed humans to build structures that were both bright and resilient. Suddenly, a house on the surface could be kept warm in the winter and cool in the summer through artificial means. The thermal stability of the rock, while still magnificent, was no longer a unique necessity for survival. Consider the impact of the light bulb. For millennia, the underground was a world of flickering oil lamps and dancing shadows. It was a place where light was a precious and managed resource. But when electricity began to flow, the dark corners of the surface world were banished. A home above ground could now be as brightly lit as any sun-drenched plain, even in the middle of the night. The theatrical and intimate atmosphere of the underground, once so charming and necessary, began to feel restrictive compared to the boundless possibilities of electrified surface cities. Humans found that they could recreate the comfort and safety of the deep while still enjoying the view of the stars. Think about the sheer practicalities of expansion. A city carved into stone is a masterpiece of permanence, but it is also a difficult place to grow. If your family grew larger, you had to physically carve a new room out of the bedrock. If the population of the town increased, you had to dig deeper and further, always mindful of the structural integrity of the earth above you. On the surface, growth was easier. You could build outward, upward, and across the landscape. The limitations of the stone became a frustration for a species that was beginning to move and communicate at unprecedented speeds. The slow, methodical pace of life in the deep was at odds with the accelerating pulse of the modern world. Imagine the last generation to call these places home. They would have moved between two worlds, perhaps working on the surface during the day and returning to the cool quiet of the earth at night. But as the surface infrastructure grew, as schools and hospitals and marketplaces became more accessible above ground, the journey into the deep became a chore rather than a relief. You can almost feel the moment when a family decided to move their belongings into a new house made of brick and timber. They would have left behind the heavy stone furniture, the built-in shelves, and the ancient hearths. They left behind the relics that you are now exploring. These abandoned spaces did not disappear. They became the hidden veins of history that we study today. Look at the way a carved church in Cappadocia or a dugout in an old mining town now serves as a bridge to the past. They transition from living communities into archives of human adaptation. You can see the wear on the stone steps, the soot on the ceilings, and the marks of everyday life that tell a story of resilience. They are no longer places where people hide from the sun, but places where people from the surface come to remember what it was like to live in the earth. We are drawn back to these relics because they remind us of our own resourcefulness. The transition also changed our relationship with the earth itself. When we lived inside the rock, we were part of its rhythm. We understood its breath and its weight. When we surfaced, we began to see the earth as something to be built upon rather than lived within. But the relics in the dark still whisper their lessons. They remind us that our modern comfort is built on the foundations of these ancient experiments. The engineering of airflow, the management of waste, and the collective interdependence that define these underground towns are the same principles that sustain our modern cities. We may have surfaced, but we carry the ingenuity of the deep within us. Feel the atmospheric shift as you move from the abandoned sectors toward the areas that have been preserved for the modern world. Today, many of these underground towns have found a second life. They are no longer residences for the many, but wonders for the curious. You can walk through an underground hotel in Australia or a museum in Turkey and experience a curated version of the subterranean life. You feel the same cool air and hear the same muffled echoes, but the context has changed. The fear and the necessity are gone, replaced by wonder and historical appreciation. We surfaced because we could, but we return because we must understand where we came from. Listen to the silence once more. It is a silence that tells us that the earth is always there, waiting and ready to provide shelter if the world above ever becomes too harsh again. The relics in the dark are not just reminders of a forgotten way of life, they are a blueprint for survival that remains etched in the stone. We surfaced because we mastered the elements, because we yearned for the horizon, and because we found new ways to create home. But the underground towns remain, silent and steadfast guardians of a time when humanity found its greatest comfort in the deep. Picture the final person to leave a city like Derinkuy. They would have looked back at the narrow entrance one last time, feeling the cool breath of the earth on their neck before stepping out into the warmth of the Anatolian sun. They were not just leaving a house, they were leaving a legacy of thousands of years. They were surfacing into a new era of human history, one defined by the sky and the wind. But the stone remained. It held the stories of every family that had sought refuge, every child who had played in the tunnels, and every elder who had watched the oil lamps flicker. As you prepare to follow that path back to the surface, take one last look at the carved comforts around you. You have traveled through the hidden veins of history, felt the desert's deep embrace, and explored the opal cities of the silent streets. You have seen how humanity can bend the very bedrock to its will to create a world of ingenuity and peace. The relics in the dark are not dead things. They are the breathing evidence of our ability to adapt, to survive, and to eventually thrive. We surfaced because we were ready, but the deep will always be a part of our story. The earth's soft cradle is still there, beneath the veil of night and time, waiting to remind us of the strength we found in the dark. Our journey through the towns built completely underground concludes here, at the threshold of the sun, where the lessons of the deep meet the light of the modern day. You have walked the ancient streets of Derinkuy and felt the cool, red sandstone of Kuba Pidi. You have traced the lineage of ancestors who sought refuge in the quiet embrace of the earth. But now, turn your gaze forward. The sun that once drove early humans into the shadows is now a catalyst for a global reimagining. Imagine a horizon where the skyline does not climb toward the clouds, but instead plunges with elegant precision into the silent strength of the crust. This is not a retreat of the desperate, but a bold expansion of the visionary. We are entering the era of the earth scraper, a time when our greatest architectural triumphs will be measured not by their height, but by their depth. Imagine standing at the edge of a massive, inverted pyramid of glass and steel, descending hundreds of feet into the heart of a bustling metropolis. Above you, the city screams with the familiar cacophony of sirens, wind, and transit. But as you step onto a descending platform, the noise begins to peel away, replaced by a sophisticated, rhythmic hum. This is the future of urban density, a solution to the sprawling, overcrowded footprints of our modern cities. Here, the earth is no longer just a foundation, it is the very fabric of the city itself. Picture vast, multi-story atriums where the air is as crisp and clean as a mountain summit, purified by massive, bioluminescent algae walls that glow with a soft, emerald light. This is Subterra tomorrow, where human ingenuity transforms the depths into a labyrinth of light and life. Feel the subtle, steady temperature that greets you in this futuristic realm. In the world of the surface, climate change brings unpredictable fury, with heat waves that buckle asphalt and storms that threaten to erase decades of progress. But here, deep beneath the thermal blanket of the planet, the climate is a constant, curated masterpiece. You are walking through a shopping district where it is always a temperate 72 degrees, regardless of the blizzard or the drought raging above. The Earth acts as a massive heat sink, a natural radiator that requires only a fraction of the energy used by surface buildings to maintain a perfect environment. This is the ultimate sustainable city, a sanctuary that works with the laws of thermodynamics rather than fighting against them. Listen closely. The silence you encountered in the ancient caves has been replaced by a new kind of soundscape. It is the sound of a city that breathes. You hear the faint, musical chime of maglev shuttles gliding through vacuum-sealed tubes, connecting residential sectors to industrial hubs without a single puff of exhaust. You hear the soft murmur of water flowing through hydroponic gardens that line the corridors, providing fresh food for thousands without the need for sunlight or soil. This is not the dark, cramped existence of a bunker. This is an expansive, airy civilization that uses the weight of the planet to shield itself from the chaos of the atmosphere. Of course, the primary challenge of the deep has always been the light. But look around you. You are not enveloped in the flickering shadows of an oil lamp. Instead, look up at the ceiling of a massive underground park. You see a brilliant, blue sky, complete with drifting clouds and a sun that seems to track across the heavens. This is the miracle of fiber optic sunlight and high-definition digital skies. Thousands of miles of cables funnel genuine solar rays from the surface down into the deepest levels, where they are diffused through elegant, crystalline fixtures to provide the full spectrum of light necessary for human health and plant growth. In areas where the surface sun cannot reach, massive LED arrays mimic the natural rhythms of the day, ensuring that the community remains attuned to their internal biological clocks. You are living in a world of perpetual, perfect afternoon, where the light is always soft and the shadows are never cold. Think of the engineering required to manifest such a vision. We are no longer limited to the soft tuff of Turkey or the sandstone of Australia. We are developing laser boring machines that can melt through granite and basalt, leaving behind glass-smooth walls of incredible structural integrity. We are creating self-healing concrete that uses bacteria to seal cracks, ensuring that these underground cathedrals can stand for thousands of years with minimal maintenance. These are not merely buildings, they are geological features, as permanent and stable as the mountains themselves. You are witnessing the birth of a civilization that plans not in decades, but in millennia. What kind of society will flourish in these new depths? You might imagine a world of unprecedented connectivity. When a city is built vertically into the earth, every level is a shared resource. The social walls that often divide surface neighborhoods melt away when your commute is a vertical transition and your parks are communal atriums. You find yourself part of a collective that values efficiency and sustainability as the very air they breathe. Decisions about resource management and energy consumption are not abstract political debates, they are the tangible realities of shared survival. You would find a community that is deeply aware of its place within the ecosystem, a civilization that takes only what it needs and protects the world above by minimizing its footprint. This vision is already taking shape in the quiet corners of our modern world. In Singapore, engineers are planning a massive underground science city, a labyrinth of laboratories and offices that will free up precious surface land for parks and housing. In Mexico City, architects have proposed a 300-meter deep earth scraper beneath the historic Central Square, a glass-topped void that would bring light and life into the heart of the ancient capital. Even in the frozen reaches of the Arctic, seed vaults and data centers are being tucked away into the permafrost, using the natural cold of the earth to preserve our most precious resources for the distant future. These are the first, tentative steps into a realm that will one day house millions. And yet, the true frontier of the subterra tomorrow lies even further away. Turn your gaze toward the stars. When humanity eventually establishes permanent homes on the Moon and Mars, we will not build glass domes on the surface. The radiation of deep space and the relentless bombardment of micrometeorites will drive us back into the embrace of the Earth, or in this case, the lunar and Martian regolith. Imagine the vast lava tubes of the Red Planet, ancient volcanic tunnels miles wide and hundreds of miles long. Here, we will build the first extraterrestrial cities, shielded from the hostile vacuum by miles of Martian rock. You will walk through Martian gardens, breathing air recycled by Martian plants, while the cold, radioactive desert above remains a distant, silent neighbor. We will become a species that carries the lessons of our underground history into the very heart of the solar system. As you stand in the center of a future underground plaza, feeling the cool air and seeing the artificial sunlight dance across the water of a recycled fountain, you realize that we are coming full circle. Our ancestors began in the caves, seeking protection from the unknown. For a few thousand years, we built upward, testing the limits of the atmosphere and the resilience of our structures. But now, as the challenges of our own making and the vastness of the cosmos press in upon us, we are returning to the bedrock. We are finding that the earth is not just a place to stand, but a place to live. It is a sanctuary that offers us the thermal stability, the silence, and the security we need to reach our full potential. The labyrinth of comfort and ingenuity you have explored throughout this journey is not a relic of the past. It is a blueprint for the future. Each tunnel carved by a pickaxe in the ancient world was a preparation for the laser-bored passages of tomorrow. Each oil lamp flickering in a tomb was a precursor to the fiber-optic suns that will light our way to the stars. These hidden veins of history are now the high-tech arteries of a coming age. You are part of a lineage that sees the earth not as a void, but as a protective embrace. The story of the towns built completely underground is the story of human resilience. It is a whisper from the depths that tells us we can survive and flourish in any environment, provided we have the courage to dig deep and the wisdom to work with the planet. As you emerge from this vision of the future and step back into the light of the present, carry the memory of the quiet, stable earth with you. Understand that beneath your feet lies an untapped realm of possibility, a silent world waiting for the next generation of builders, dreamers, and inhabitants. We are only just beginning to understand the secrets held within the ancient rock, and the future of our civilization may very well depend on our ability to find our home once again within the deep, fascinating embrace of subterra tomorrow. The next chapter of our history is being written in the stone, waiting for us to carve out our place in the quiet, enduring heart of the world.